Welcome to the Solar Cycle podcast, powered by Organic Transit, where we explore the future of clean mobility, sustainable cities, and the innovators reshaping how we move through the world. Join host, entrepreneur, and storyteller Justin Starbird as he takes you inside the ideas, technologies, and real-world impact behind the revolutionary ELF, the world's most efficient solar-powered vehicle. Thanks for joining us. Let's start today's cycle.
Welcome back to the Solar Cycle podcast. My name is Justin Starbird, and I get to welcome back co-founder, CEO of Organic Transit, Rob Cotter. And today we have a guest with us today, Felipe Whitaker, the executive director for the Francesco Collaborative. Guys, thanks for joining me today.
Great to be here.
Thank you so much.
Rob, it's not often we get to welcome a new guest. Do you want to introduce Felipe for our audience?
So Felipe is a elf owner. He lived in his hometown is where the elves were being made, and he used to watch them kind of roll out the front door and then, kind of zoom around town. And I guess both he and his dad and some other family members use the elf. Like a lot of cities, it's not so safe all the time to use a regular bicycle. And so one of his family members had a little brush with a car, I think, and it kind of instigated, maybe it's time we got an elf. So they have an elf, and we've become close friends since that time. We have a lot of things in common, and he really is an amazing guy.
Well, Felipe, with that, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here.
I don't know how you overcome that introduction. I mean, talk a little bit about, how you, from your perspective, how you got to know Rob and Organic Transit and see firsthand the ELF.
I had just moved to Durham in 2013. My wife went to Duke for grad school, and I'd walk about a mile to the farmers market on Saturday mornings. And the highlight was seeing the elf factory on the way. And I remember stopping one day and getting to test drive and actually see. And I had young kids, and so them getting to actually interact was, kind of the highlight. It made me feel like, oh my gosh, I landed in the coolest city in the world here in Durham, largely because of the creation of the elf in my backyard. And then when I heard that it was so intentionally designed and manufactured, it just grew my appreciation for what an incredible solution to our broader climate challenges, to our health challenges, to our community living. There's so many benefits to what elves offer us. So that's a little bit of my initial exposure to Rob and Organic Transit.
That's great. Well, talk a little bit about Francesco Collaborative and what you do there and how that actually ties back.
We were super inspired by Pope Francis had this very clear message that we need to hear the cry of the earth together with the cry of the poor, together with the structural problems of the global economy. And I was a investor personally in many slow money loans to a local farmer, a local bakery owner. And I thought, maybe we could connect what I have seen in terms of a different kind of finance together with the principles of Catholic social teaching. And so Francesco Collaborative's vision is to make that real for entrepreneurs that are embodying this creative work to build different kinds of companies that have different kinds of vision and can operationalize that through their products and services. And so we do education and training, mostly for investors, help them restructure their portfolio with this kind of social and environmental transformation at the core, their values operationalized through their allocation decisions. So we're a community now. We have about 200 active investors in our community, and we just continue the learning and connection journey. And when I came across reconnected Rob a couple of years ago, it was so clear that he's one of these entrepreneurs that comes from this deep place of understanding the challenges of our world and has built something that is just so potentially transformative for so many of the systems we want and the communities we want. And so just been exciting to accompany him as one of the many prophetic economy leaders that we think are helping remake the economy.
That's exciting. Rob, what does that feel like to hear you be mentioned alongside some of those titans of industry?
It's so gratifying to hear it coming from Felipe, who's really, an expert in this genre, this industry, this business aspect. And really, it goes counter to a lot of things in the business world, and that's what most people find so incredibly attractive about it. That business can be this strong, powerful force for so many good things, whether it's environmental, whether it's health aspects, whether it's getting people, back and forth in a safe and enjoyable way in dealing with the disabled, having them giving them freedom to move about. All those things um, are rarely in one item. And the Francesco Collaborative really identifies many of these things, whether they're dealing with more equitable home loans, or if they're dealing with composting situations, or just getting people back up on their feet, or all these different things that they get to approach. It's really like one of those wonderful times that people get to engage in a right livelihood. And again, I think in our society it's kind of rare, and it's extremely admirable and rewarding to watch it take place.
Maybe I'll jump in, Rob, and share just a little bit about um, my journey. I started as a consultant doing work in Boston with large energy companies. And so I had a big background in both oil and gas and clean energy. And after some of that time, I saw how the billion-dollar infrastructure decisions get made that shape so much of our built world. I then spent 10 years doing building a social business in Washington, D.C., with churches and schools, helping them do more values-based decision making for their facility contracts, helping do solar on their rooftops. And that led me to Francesco Collaborative, where we work with investors now, realizing how to do more values-based investing. And what's so hard across all these different experiences is unless you have somebody make it easier for you to operationalize a decision to a more values-based action, it's hard to overcome the dominant thinking, the dominant tendencies. Um, I had the privilege of being on a board of a startup accelerator for a number of years, and so I got to actually meet entrepreneurs and coach them and support them, including investing in some of their businesses. And that kind of helped me appreciate not only my own entrepreneurial journey, but how to support others along the way and how critical early capital is. And so part of my own investing practice in the past 5 years has been how do you find and build community around enterprises where the early capital can be so important for their long-term growth and development. So part of what led me to be, especially excited about this opportunity.
How hard is it to find mission-based or opportunities like this that aren't just a dream, that they actually have a business behind them or an opportunity for a business? Because I feel like there are a lot of really wonderful people out there with great ideas that don't have a plan, and they want to change the world with no idea of how to do that. What is it that you're looking for, benchmarks, milestones to give? Because you're actively looking for people to invest in. You want to invest in, give them that money and back them. But I've got to imagine that's still pretty hard.
Like you said, so many people have great ideas. I'd say many people actually have pretty good plans too, and many people have persistence to kind of keep operationalizing those plans. What's harder to find is somebody who has the experience of gone through a previous startup or built a company and being successful at that and built a product, bring a product to market, be positive in revenue, have a sustained track record. And so what struck me and continues to strike me about the organic transit opportunity is that it's a company that's already gone through a whole first phase. This is a second phase in the journey. And
Yeah.
so Rob is incredibly talented with his own background around social change and marketing, big firms, global vision, but then so personally rooted. And, one thing I look for in entrepreneurs is just the tenacity to persevere through hard things. And when you see that tenacity, and then you see the quality of the engineering, the quality of the product, so rarely do you see that validated by so many customers. And then, of course, you're in a complicated ecosystem here. So anyway, there's many pieces that make this quite different than many other early stage investment opportunities because of the background, the trajectory, and the history.
Does some of the challenges that Rob faced previously, does that give you pause, or does that give you excitement for having seen him kind of come back from that?
I think having spent the past 5 years in the investment world, I see how often um, investment capital, dominant forms of capital, whether it's venture with some super high returns, can take companies completely different directions. And so I've seen it so many times in my career. There's this great energy broker company that was trying to be the kayak of energy prices in Washington, D.C. And because of a couple of their investors went bankrupt, and they were a key partner of mine. I lost a couple $100,000 in that process. There's another one in Boston, similar experience. So I've seen many companies that have brilliant teams, super committed founders, super good strategies, amazing customer bases, but the investors have power and they drive the bus. And so much what we try to teach at Francesco Collaborative is how do we, as investors who have the capital stewards, we're the ones that often have more power over the direction of businesses. So the challenges of the past at organic transit don't scare me at all. Just like this is the reality of how what what keeps the systems the way they are. And so for those of us who believe in a different kind of future for our families, for our communities, we have the power to change that. But being the kind of investors that are willing to come along for this journey and support this kind of enterprise, this kind of product, get out there in the market.
That's really exciting to hear. Go ahead, Rob.
So I think just like the investors in the Francesco Collaborative come at things with a different agenda, I think it's also a similar or complementary type of investment coming from the crowdfunding investors, where they don't have this giant agenda. They don't have a hedge fund behind them. They look at the product, they look at the business plan and go, oh, I would like to have that. That would work in my neighborhood. That would be good for my aunt, uncle, cousin, brother. And they want to see it work. And it sounds odd, but a lot of times in that venture community, the typical VCs, they have a completely different agenda. And we've all witnessed it over the years. And as Felipe said, we've seen good businesses go under for reasons of moving capital in different directions that were contrary to the directive of the company. And so I'm really excited about not only my relationship with the Francesco Collaborative, but also with the retail investors on the WeFunders side. We get to look at things with a clear perspective and get to engage that way.
One other unique piece about, retail investors and small crowdfunding platforms is that it's much easier for us as individuals to write checks to pick things we believe in. We can take that extra risk. And so much these institutional investors have these big allocation portfolios and they allocate to funds, then funds allocate to enterprises. But what was super exciting about the advent of crowdfunding, which is, just in the past 20 years, is that it unleash the power of the culture to say, this is a community, this is what we want, and to build a community around behind companies. And we've seen so many successes. But it really takes people like us taking initiative to say, you know what, we need a safer kind of transportation, a more exciting kind of transportation, healthy for us. And for me, my dad has biked everywhere. And he has done that throughout my upbringing. I started biking when I, got my first job, biking to work. But the roads aren't often, safe, especially in certain parts of town. And realizing that if you could have a bike like an elf that is on the street, you feel so much safer. And then the fact that there's, 10 million miles traveled and, almost no serious injuries, it's like, the best possible scenario for me to kind of get my lifestyle and also, for my dad and people around me that I love. So I can't wait for elves to be accessible everywhere for everybody.
Absolutely. I think it's so exciting to have the vehicle of the crowdfunding platforms, especially WeFunder, to be able to drive this and give exposure to mission-driven projects like Rob's and Organic Transit, and bring it to folks where I know, this you personally made an investment, and that is really meaningful to you. And every one of those investments has such a significant impact on the further development of the comeback story. And what is that like for you to talk a little bit about the differences between what the collaborative invests in versus you, and how that changes at the dinner table? Like, is there more excitement around it? Are you, not that you're more proud of one over another, it's like picking a different child, right? Like which one's best, but at the same time, it does give you a little bit more, a little bit more responsibility.
Yeah. I should say my role at Francesco Collaborative, it's a nonprofit. We support mostly institutional investors. So the kinds of checks they write are much larger and they don't tend to go to direct enterprises. They tend to go to funds or fund of funds that then would invest in companies. So and with that hat, I have to make the disclaimer that I'm not an investment advisor. Nothing in this, episode or thing I say here is formal investment advice or any kind of other tax or legal advice. This is just for informational purposes only. But as an individual and a father and somebody who's written lots of direct checks to small businesses in my community in Durham, I realized after my first check in 2018, I was part of this little slow money group in North Carolina where we found entrepreneurs. And based on talking to other people that trusted them, I realized, oh, I can trust this bakery owner to kind of give me back my $2,000 investment, my $10,000 investment. And sure enough, after doing it a few times, you realize, oh, you can build a relationship. And so there's just a huge potential for peer-to-peer lending, for crowdfunding to help invest in the kinds of businesses that have the values that make things different. This particular investment is so different because my kids can see the actual elf. They can see the future. So rarely do you get to have that visible product. Like we invest in employee ownership. We buy existing companies, convert them to, employee-owned companies. Theoretically, you understand that's good, but there's not something tangible that you can get into. Like my 2-year-old loves getting in the back seat of our elf. It's like his favorite thing. He's like, "Daddy, big bike, big bike." He wants to, you know, be in it as much as possible. So it's just totally different. There's no other investment I've made that has had this kind of, life-giving integrated part of our life that feels like it. My daughter's 13. She's, thinking about getting a car for her. I'm like, I wonder, can we get her driving the Elf first and things like that. So there's just so many ways this connects to family life and in more tangible ways than other investments do.
Yeah. I think that's got to be music to your ears, Rob, especially as you launch and start to gain some pretty significant momentum on the WeFunder platform and get to share this new message out to the world.
Absolutely. One of the most interesting and gratifying things for me is the amount of emails I get from people from the disabilities community that want another elf. They've been using it all this time. It gave them the kind of freedom that they've never had. They'll never drive a car. They can't ride a bike. And here they are commuting to work, going shopping, aren't depending on, unusual bus schedules and things like that to get where they want to go and do what they have to do. And so, yeah, it never gets dull hearing people's stories about how the elf affects their lives. And in this regard, people become investors because of that. And it's just so amazing to witness it and have it all come together. And Felipe, puts it in such concise and eloquent terms.
One thing I
Yeah,
might
Felipe, I was just going to ask, when you, make those investments either from the institutional side or from the personal side, what is the difference in terms of the dialogue that you get to have with those owners? Like, I feel like with this particular platform in these campaigns, you tend to become even more personal, and you get, that I want to say VIP treatment, but as the investor, and you get to see how the sauce is made at the end of the day. What does that do for you in terms of looking forward to, continuing to participate or even uh, increase that investment or share with friends and family that, hey, this is a local company, and even if it wasn't local, the opportunities that you get through those crowdfunding platforms to share your voice and vision. You mentioned before, when you write those checks, you get more decisions. When everybody's writing those checks, it's not that you get diluted decision making. What it does is it actually gives you, in my opinion, more of an opportunity to, stroke those flames, and make the fire bigger.
It's a great way to put it. Yeah, I think there's a special sauce to kind of like investing in crowdfunding, being a part of projects early. I guess part of for me the way I think about my personal investment portfolio is thinking about my kids and my grandkids, thinking about my retirement, thinking about long term. And when I think about 10, 20, 40 years in the future, I realize the trajectory from my perspective is we're kind of on an unlivable trajectory. And this was a teacher I had 7 or 8 years ago, went to a workshop, and he was a former hedge fund manager, and he managed, a big environmental nonprofits endowment. And he said, his kind of wake up call was when he had directly invested in a palm oil company that was destroying the rainforest in the Borneo. And it was this, and his client was this environmental conservation group that was trying to save the orangutan in Borneo, the same rainforest. And so the environmental nonprofit's endowment was invested in a company that was cutting down the exact forest that they also had a campaign collecting huge donations from the public to try to save this orangutan. And that's when this mathematician, this brilliant hedge fund guy, got paid so much, said, I have to get out. And he left, and then he became a teacher. And he said, we need to change. There's essential knowledge for the transition to a different kind of economy that we need to be socializing. And in that class, he talked about livable future insurance. How can our investments buy like insurance in a different kind of future? And ever since then, I've tracked all of my investments and what I think about their livable future return. So the financial return is one column, and I'll look at that, but I'll also look at the livable future return. And so what do I think over 10, 20, 40 years for my kids? If this is my retirement money or kids I want for their college or other things, I actually look at what percentage. And then I don't take the financial return, I take the blend of what I put the livable future return and that. So that's how I make my personal calculations. And so when I see a company that offers such dramatic potential to change transportation, to change emissions, to change so much about the livability of our communities, it's easy for me to want to put more in because I see how much it's connected to this bigger picture. So, and I also see how other people can easily see it with the product. So it's easy to tell my friends about it because they see it. It's easy to tell my neighbors, say, hey, if you put your money in now, you're going to get a cheaper one sooner order to actually get a vehicle. So part of it is realizing that there is this VIB treatment that comes along with coming to believe early in a company before they have massive traction. And so that's a little bit about how I've come to my decision around it.
That's great. Rob, here, I'll let you have the final word here.
Am I going to say something else? Well, again, coming from Felipe is just amazing to hear him portrayed this way. And there's lots of people that feel this way that don't have this kind of background and understanding of how it fits into the whole ecosystem. They just look at it and say, oh, I can get healthy and lose some weight. Or they look at it and it's like, oh, I don't have to use my car as much, all those sorts of things. But it all compiles, it all comes together, aggregates for a much more livable community, a much more livable planet, and people are much, much healthier. So I am totally gratified that Felipe's on board. He's part of the team and has such an easy way to portray this to his network and his colleagues and friends and neighbors on one hand. The other hand, really this was like a God-given thing that, I'm just a guy. I worked on this stuff and I never, ever expected it to have this kind of impact on individuals and communities. And now I think it's going to have that kind of impact for the investment community as well.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot to look forward to, and just so thankful, Felipe, to have you join us today and hear your perspective, what drives your own investment strategy and the funds as well. It's really exciting to hear that thought process, and also, how excited your kids are about this and what the future holds. There is so much more to come, and we're so delighted to have you as part of that group.
No, it's so excited to be able to join both the elf owner community, but also the investor community, realizing that these early people that believe and trust in this different kind of future, we can make that happen. And, the proportion to our belief in it, it does just propel the possibilities of where elves can go. Like I think about Southeast Asia or Latin America or Africa, and when I think about that potential, it's like, oh, I want to be a part of this story early so the millions, the billions of people can benefit from what elves offer.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's quite the comeback story, and we're looking forward to all that's to come. On behalf of my guest today, Rob Cotter, the CEO and co-founder of Organic Transit, and Felipe Whitaker, the executive director for the Francesco Collaborative, you've been listening to the Solar Cycle Podcast. Until next time.
Thank you.